The Drum in association with Xandr are here on the streets of London talking to consumers about the relevance of advertising. Do you watch ads? Where do you watch ads? And does that influence what you buy? Let's go and find out.
I think consumers' general perception of advertising is wide and varied, in all honesty. The positive sentiment that we've seen with advertising is where it's been highly relevant, it's evoked an emotion. Where it's been intrusive, it's clearly putting consumers off in general. But I think what's understood is that advertising needs to be here in order for us to be able to consume content in the way we do today, that's not stuck behind paywalls and allows us to engage with content in a free-flowing and free manner. So in terms of the advertising that I engage with, it's certainly the advertising that's relevant, it evokes some sort of emotion and it's creative. And in that sense, I think it certainly increases the brand loyalty or brand engagement that I have with them from that point. So online advertising has come leaps and bounds in terms of being improved for the general consumer. I think if you look at the approaches that the regulators have taken to GDPR and e-privacy, that's a major step on from where we were a few years ago. There's also been a lot of innovation in the space, so UK companies especially have led the way in terms of how data is being used to create really interesting approaches to advertising. And that benefits the consumer in the long run because they're able to engage with brands in a way that they never have done before.
Yes, I think that digital advertising can be improved by inclusivity. I think that brands need to pay attention to the social climate, and I think if that happens, we'll see a greater improvement within society.
There's certain types of advertising I dislike, definitely like digital ads that pop up. I think like Will was saying about like there being like a story, you get more of that with like TV advertising and radio advertising. Whereas a bit more of an emotional attachment to it rather than just like here's what you'd be doing online than stuff popping up, and I find that annoying.
It's getting harder and harder for people to be heard above the noise. There's so many ads, there's so much marketing out there, everyone's doing it. So the question is, how do you rise above all that noise and get noticed?
I believe it's very useful in this day and age because a lot of things are going online.
I find it very intrusive, annoying, especially if it's things that I just had a little glimpse at to see whether I would be interested or not. And then suddenly I'm inundated with all this rubbish.
Like targeted digital advertising sometimes can be a bit creepy. There's certain types of spot advertising when it's in really high frequency that can get very annoying.
I like carefully constructed, well thought out advertising. I get a little tired of like lazy put together, ads and commercials.
There have been adverts that I've seen on Instagram stories where I have actually gone to buy the product or service. For example, there was a magazine subscription that I saw on Instagram stories and I just bought it instantly.
The main themes that I took away from the videos was that it was first of all fantastic to get such insight from consumers and how varied their responses were. I think the general approach to how consumers feel about advertising was as we expected. The industry would expect a level of sort of negativity towards advertising when it's intrusive, when it's not adding to their experiences online or outside of digital for that matter. I think where it did create positive sentiment or advertising was appreciated was when it was highly relevant to their experience. It touched on consumers that had an engaging experience with the brand in general. And it was evoking an emotion, it was highly relevant to the place and time that they were in. Based on what we've heard from consumers, my advice for the advertising industry is really to go back to basics in terms of how they think about content consumption and consumer behaviour. The two things can't be treated in silos any longer. I think what's clear is that consumers are sort of time poor and content rich. And for that reason, the way that we engage with consumers has to be relevant, it has to evoke an emotion, and it also has to be non-intrusive and appreciated by the consumer based on the brand that they'd like to engage with.